Why add one more podcast to an already crowded platform? The fact is, people are standing up for themselves now more than ever. They're tired of government interference in their lives. They're tired of feeling that government officials and special interests are working for themselves instead of the people that they vowed to represent. How do you determine who's serving you with integrity and who's self-serving? Social media has become a wasteland of spin, lies, and conspiracy theories. We're here to discuss anything and everything that impacts the people. From local to state to federal issues, we'll hear from all sides and filter through the nonsense that you normally see online. That's the difference about what we're doing here. The people deserve to hear it straight. We'll provide the proof that we're too honest for social media. I'm Tim Balderman, and it's time to get honest. Joining me here today, New Lenox Police Chief Lou Alessandrini and New Lenox Deputy Police Chief Mike Anesi. Guys, thanks for being here.
Our pleasure. Thanks for having us.
All right. Let's start with you. Chief, tell me a little bit about your professional law enforcement career.
Yeah, sure. I started my career at the Chicago Heights Police Department about 1992. I was a desk clerk for maybe a year, became a dispatcher for another 2 years, and then ultimately I swore in as a police officer in 1995. I was in a patrol division basically for 5 years. Around 2000, I became a detective, and I worked in investigations until 2005 when ultimately I got offered a job in New Lenox. I've been in New Lenox for the past 20 years now. I've spent time in patrol, in investigations again, got promoted to sergeant. I was in charge of a shift on the street. I was in charge of the investigations unit for several years. I spent time on the South Suburban Major Crimes Task Force where I served as a supervisor. And then in 2017, I was promoted to Deputy Chief. I also was sent to the FBI National Academy, if I remember correctly, as were you. Mm-hmm. I spent 10 weeks in Quantico, came back, and in 2020, I became the Chief of Police. And been serving in that role for almost 5 years now.
Outstanding. All right, real good.
Wow.
Micah?
It's a tough one to follow. Well, for me, public service started about 1998 when I went to the Air Force. I did 7 years in the Air Force, a lot of it overseas in England and Germany. It was a good time, but came back to the New Lenox area, and I worked just with like family, and then I started with the police department in 2007. From that, basically, I did 7 or 8 years on patrol, and I found an interest in detectives and got promoted there. I stayed with the detective division, eventually becoming the detective sergeant in 2013, where I got promoted as well. And then in 2017 got promoted, in 2020 got promoted deputy chief. 2020 deputy chief. All right. What's the future plans here, Chief? We're ready to talk about them, or what are your thoughts?
I mean, sure, I'm ready. I coming up on finishing my 30th year. And I've made the decision to retire, as you know. And so on August 8th will be my last day. And it's been a great career. A lot has changed in the 30 plus years that I've been in law enforcement. I'm grateful to have done the last 20 in this town for sure. I don't know that I could have gone a full 30 at my previous department, only because of the workload and things like that. But this is an excellent community, which I'm sure we'll have more time to talk about. But yeah, my plan is retire and spend some time with my wife, Susan, and spend an extended stay in Italy where I enjoy most of my off time. So
yeah, it's well-desered. You've done an amazing job for us here. And let's talk a little bit about the differences. You know, you say you were in Chicago Heights, and as you both know, I served in Chicago Ridge as a police officer from 1988 to 2010, retiring as the chief of police. I did graduate from the FBI National Academy in 1999, so it was quite a while ago. But I know what it was like to be a police officer in Cook County, and although I haven't served as a police officer in Will County, in talking with you guys and the officers, I certainly know the differences. But talk a little bit about what life was like, not even necessarily just Chicago Heights, but the differences when you cross over county borders like that.
No, law enforcement in general is just taking on drastic changes. Technology being the most obvious one. Laws changing, things like that. What's expected of the police, we're expected to know and do far more than we did 30 years ago. And then, yeah, like you said, going from Cook County to Will County, it's almost like going from one country to another. And that's not really too much of an exaggeration either. I think the biggest change, the first one coming over is just the paperwork. You make a felony arrest on a person-to-person crime in Cook County, and you have to wait for the state's attorneys to come to the station, interview every witness in person. A lot of times they're coming from Chicago, and most of these types of crimes are occurring in the evening, so you might be there at midnight trying to get victims and witnesses and family members there. And then they wouldn't even leave where they were coming from, whether it was Chicago or to our station. They wouldn't even leave to come to us until everybody was there. And so, it was such a battle just to keep people inside the PD. And then when they get there's just a ton more paperwork. Contrast that with Will County. And you get here and you make a felony arrest and you pick up the phone, you call the state's attorney's office. This is what I have. This is who did it. This is the evidence that I have. Okay, send them over in the morning. And you pretty much just write your general report and off they go. And it is night and day. That was the most glaring thing right away. It was the amount of paperwork, the less paperwork that you had to do, and then just the cooperation and the charges. I think in Cook County, hopefully that's changing now, but when I left 20 years ago, it was just, what do you got to do to get somebody locked up? You catch people and they committed the crime, and you jump through every loop, and there would be something that would keep them from going to jail. And then you come to Will, and you see the cooperation from the state's attorney's office and the ease. You still have to meet the threshold by all means, but just that the willingness to charge and the cooperation by the state's attorney's office, the biggest difference for sure.
Yeah, you kind of referenced there's a new Cook County state's attorney. Everybody knows, it's no secret. Prior to this state's attorney coming in, the state's attorney before Kim Foxx was just an abomination, just horrible. Certainly not on the side of law enforcement at all. It got to the point where everybody was feeling like leniency toward criminals was more important to taking care of victims.
100%.
And that spilled out into our community. And Michael, we've talked about that on a number of occasions where we've had crimes that have happened out here in New Lenox that were committed by habitual offenders, primarily coming out of Cook County. So, tell me a little bit about that. Even now, we don't have a lot of serious or violent crime that's happening in our community, but when you see that, what are you typically finding? Where are our offenders coming from, and what do their histories look like?
Well, I think one of the greatest things about our community is all the inroads and outroads from here. You can get to major places, which also poses that issue where people have an easy route to get to us, coming down 355, coming from the city, coming from I-80. There's easy access to our town. It's good for us to get out and go places, but also brings in people from different lives, up in Chicago where they live it different. They come out this way and commit crimes so they can easily get back, right? It's a very easy way for criminals to come in, do whatever they're going to do, whether it be breaking into cars, which happens, whether it be committing burglaries. They can get back on 355. They can get back on 80 quickly and go north. We get a lot of people coming for our businesses at night because they can get off quickly and get back on quickly. And although it's a benefit for our residents, it sometimes can lead to, other crimes happening more readily, brings people out here.
Yeah, you're right. I think we've seen that in the whole area, certainly not just in New Lenox, but in the Lincoln Way area, in Lockport and Homer Glen, and in all
Frankfurt,
of these Will County suburbs. We've seen a lot of that. Now, you also kind of oversaw the implementation of the flock system. Why don't you talk a little bit about that and how that's aiding law enforcement?
Yeah, it was about 5 years ago we started to look into this program, brought it to your attention, and it helps. It puts in, right now we have 22 cameras, puts 22 set of eyes out on the street 24/7 that give us the ability to, when things happen, look back at that time and see what vehicles were in the area. And that program is a very good investigative tool for the department to we've used it for criminal cases. We've used it to locate people. We use it anytime we can, and it's throughout the town, whether it's the inner workings, maybe some subdivision areas, or it's by the freeways where people will come and go.
All right. It sounds like a great tool, obviously, but one of the things that we're going to talk about on this podcast, not just today, but with future guests as well, is kind of that government overreach, that government interference. And when people see cameras, sometimes, and you see it on social media, which, as one doctor said years ago, and I agree completely, is the cancer of this generation. I mean, it's just what social media has done positively, in my opinion, has been far outweighed from a negative standpoint. But bad information gets out there all the time, and people see these cameras and they're like, oh, Big Brother's watching us. Tell us how that's not true.
Sure. Well, this information isn't stored forever. This information will come and go in 30 days. The only way it stays is if something happens and we happen to be looking into that exact instant or moment, and we can see what is there. Nobody has direct access to these cameras. Nobody's watching them 24/7, and only the law enforcement, the police department, has access to them. So nobody can just call us up and ask, who was driving where at what time.
All right, but I'm going to stop you there, and I'm saying this as a former police chief, but there have been some bad cops out there as well, and we know over the years some have abused systems where they can gain information. But here in New Lenox, who really can check those camera systems, and when is a supervisor notified? Doesn't it require the plate has to be entered as stolen or something for an instant notification?
Yeah, so for instant notifications, there are certain alerts that are set up: stolen plates, missing people, and we can put in certain parameters in there. There is a great audit system with this program. If you go to search anything, it captures it. So there's no way to hide that you wanted to search for something and not anybody know. All supervisors have access, and they know when incidents are happening, and can tell who was looking at it and who wasn't.
All right, really good. And Chief, again, one of the reasons why we're doing this podcast is because, as you know, I'm very active on social media. That's how people want to communicate these days. But we had in town somebody who put up a camera system because they work for a company.
Yeah, exactly.
And so can you tell us, and it alerted some neighbors, but tell us a little bit what you know about that.
A guy works for one of the companies that produces these license plate readers, and he checked with us previously, got permission from us. He wasn't recording the data. He was setting the cameras specifically up to make sure that they were functioning properly. They were a prototype or a demo, and we gave him permission to put it up. So it had multiple cameras on it. I think they were testing a few different systems. And then, of course, somebody, and I understand, you drive by and you see it in somebody's front yard, and right away, like you talked about, what's Big Brother doing now? We can just put these things up on our personal property and get all the... So he did not have access to he probably, he could see the plates that were coming through, but he was not getting pertinent information.
But he has no information, like he wouldn't be able to see from the Secretary of State's portal who the car belonged to, who any of that information. It was just to see the actual plate.
How good the camera
like anybody
was
could do
reading?
standing outside. They could look at plates.
Right, absolutely.
100%.
But yeah, I think that's really important because we are, as I said, the reason for this podcast. People are starting to wake up. I think a lot of that happened during the COVID era. Like look at schools. People got a look inside schools and what teachers were doing or not doing, and that's why we saw all these school board elections and turmoil and whatnot were going on. But even nationally and at the state level, this has kind of trickled down where it's this politicized thing that's happening in our country where people are always on guard and they think that someone's trying to do something against them. That's not always the case. We're not here to spread fear. We're here to give real information. But people are not trusting because those in authority have done the wrong thing on too many occasions. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, listen, I always felt as a police officer, there's nobody who disliked a dishonest police officer more than an honest one. It just makes our job harder.
Yeah.
So tell us about this community and how you feel our community views you.
Sure.
Because that's really important. What's your perspective? How do you feel?
Yeah, well, I would start off by saying this community supports its police department. And I often revisit that to make sure it's not just me sitting in the chief's office drawing that conclusion. I listen to what the men say and what they're getting out there. And then I just think that I have something to compare it to, with my prior experience in another town. just a night and day. Not to say that there weren't people that supported the police in Chicago Heights, but it's just, far more here. They support us. It's obvious. They come out to the events that we host. And but with that comes a great deal of responsibility. You have to maintain that support, and as you're talking about here, being transparent. And it's a fine line when you're posting something on social media. We utilize Facebook, and we have not really gone into. A lot of departments are doing funny things on holidays and jokes about donuts and things like that. I try to steer away from that. So we try to put out what's necessary, but with every post. There's somebody that's too much information. There's somebody that's not enough. And you have to try to respect people's privacy, whether it's the victim or even an offender is going to have some privacy restrictions as well, And so, but we do try to be transparent. And getting back to the question at hand, though, we receive tremendous support here. And it's our job, my job as the chief, to make sure that the men and women are still being professional at all times. And rewarding them with great service.
Yeah, that's right. And I know I've talked to both of you on a number of occasions when something has come up. There are times when you can't put out information right away. And it's got to be frustrating for you to see the community putting out misinformation about something that happened. But talk a little bit about why there might be a delay in the police putting out information. I mean, what would happen to cause that?
So a lot of these cases, and cases that the public is aware about, big cases, high-profile cases, these officers and detectives are working on them in the real time, right? So any information that gets out that could ruin the case or hurt the case when it comes to maybe 2 years later when we're in trial, we have to try to maintain a hold on certain aspects of the case, certain parts of the case that will really be beneficial to the investigation. Saying something that was really integral in the case, like what was used during what time, might let people know what it was and then could hurt us when we're trying to find the right answers, right? So information can be put out, but it's only the information that we can put out that won't be a detriment to when we're trying to solve the case. Because a lot of these cases, they're not solved in minutes. It takes hours, it takes days, and that information that we gather can be vital. And for us just to put everything out would definitely be a detriment to trying to solve the case.
Yeah, just to satisfy people's curiosity. You can't, there is a difference. Obviously, if the community at large, if there's a threat to the community at large. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to comment on that. I mean, obviously, the first thing you want to put out is if there's a threat to the community, with community safety being the first concern. I mean, I think a lot of the transparency stuff can come afterwards, But people want details right away. That's the era we live in. And so you try to just, give the generals until you have a more appropriate time to release that other information that's not going to jeopardize the case.
And I think too, it's important for the public to know and for us to know that when we put out information, it is the most accurate information that's being put out. It is hard when we put out a press release and then 14 other things come out that aren't true, right? And that it's not true, but I would just encourage people all the time to come back to the Facebook or reach out to us, right? And then when we can give them more information, we absolutely will.
Yeah, and of course, when you're dealing with social media, you have people who genuinely are concerned and want to know. Mm-hmm. Then you'll get the troll that just likes to stir the pot a little bit and is putting it out there. But, personally, I kind of have a laugh at some of that stuff. Yeah. But unfortunately, there are people that even in this day and age, which is amazing to me, if they see it on Facebook, they think it's true. I mean, there's so much bullshit on Facebook. First of all, how they portray their lives on Facebook is bullshit, let alone trying to give out information about something they know nothing about.
I don't know how you do it, to be honest with you. Sorry, Micah, but I'm just amazed. I don't know if you're up 24/7 or what, but I mean, I don't know if you read every single one, but you raise the bar, just in what's expected. We can't answer every single one. Well, we could, but it would just become ongoing
No, I
debate
get
online.
tagged.
And so
They somehow it's
the Boulder Dome.
If
and,
Facebook was going to do anything, I wish they get rid of the tagging thing.
Yeah.
I mean, because I don't mind being tagged on something that's important. As a matter of fact, Michael, we talked the other day. We've got construction going on, and it was a residential neighborhood, and they're saying, "Hey, cars are already using our streets as a detour, even though the construction really hadn't begun, and they didn't need to use the detour." And the amazing thing was just literally within minutes of contacting you, you had a trailer out there, and you had the community service off there, and you had police officers. And to the credit of the poster, they came back online and said, "Wow, this was great."
I think they tagged you again and said,
Yeah, they tagged me again and said,
That's
"Hey,
awesome.
thank you. This was great." And so you don't always get that, but it's nice to know, because there's nothing that pisses me off more as the mayor than, "Oh, the village doesn't care about us. The police department doesn't care about." I mean, it's such a crock.
Well, that's one of the things that the first question you asked about the support here. I see it all the time. Maybe not just as many, but there's sure a lot of people that come to the bat, come to at bat for us when we aren't getting information out, or when this happens. Like, people will still. There are people that go both ways, and you can see the support just when you get people that are like, "Hey, ease up, they're working on it," that type of stuff. They're always out there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with your comments, both of you. I mean, this community is incredibly supportive of law enforcement. Incredibly supportive of law enforcement. It's, it is the occasional person that puts something out there, and then it spreads, Well, what about the speeding on my street? So let's talk about that. That's something that people complain about. They're right. There is speeding in every residential street in town. So let's talk a little bit about how many officers we have in patrol, working at a particular time. And then you can kind of tell me, like, how many calls for service out there, and just see how difficult it would be to monitor every side street.
Yeah, sure. We sworn personnel is 40, from myself down to the newest police officer. And we work 12-hour shifts, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. We have myself, 2 deputy chiefs that make up the administration. We have 5 investigators, and pretty much everybody else is in patrol. Mike, I don't know if that's 25, 28, whatever it might be, and then they're divided up among 4 shifts. And then each shift, at the bare minimum, is a supervisor, generally a sergeant, but if he's off, it would be an officer in charge, and a minimum of 3 other patrolmen. So that's bare bones. 4 officers on a street patrolling a pretty big area.
Yeah, 42 square miles ultimately.
Huge.
Yeah.
And so that constitutes our patrol division.
Yeah, and calls for service. I mean,
Yeah,
what are we kind of looking at calls for service wise? I mean, roughly.
Yeah.
I would say that, so it's going to be different, right? You have to look at peak hours and that type of thing. But in a 12-hour period, the 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., and you can imagine that the calls for service during the daytime hours compared to during the night hours are going to be different.
Sure.
More people on the street, more people at home, that type of thing. But I would say in a 12-hour period, our officers are seeing, and I'm using a rough number, approximately 20 calls for service. Amongst those, 3 officers, at minimum, the 3 officers, the sergeant will supervise that. So they're going to be going to or responding to anywhere from 3 to 6 calls per person per their 12-hour period.
Yeah, and some of these calls, they get down on an arrest depending on what it is. It can be tied up for hours.
Yep. Sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and a lot of what they are trying to do, of course, depending on the hour, is patrol residential neighborhoods or late at night do not only residential but the businesses that are closed. Sure. So it's difficult. So someone might say, well, why don't you hire more people? But that's when you'll say, oh, my taxes are too high. And I mean, in reality, to hire a police officer here with salary, benefits, all in, I mean, even at the starting level, you're talking well over $100,000 a year.
Yeah, equipment, training.
Yes, I mean, well
payroll,
over, well in excess of that.
Everything.
And so, I mean, it is difficult. There's no doubt about it. Our police officers do an outstanding job. We don't have a lot of serious violent crime, but when we have the horrible, tragic murder over at the Shell station of one of our residents, again, by people even at a young age that had started their life of crime before they came out to our neighborhood,
In a stolen car.
In a stolen car.
Right.
So very, very little information to go on. And the investigators, with the good work, initial foundation work of our patrol officers, the investigators were able to solve that case, and we just got a guilty verdict in
Yeah,
that.
sure did.
Yep.
There's a waiting sentencing, I think, coming up the first week of May. But no, you're right. This is a safe community to live in.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying that because I'm sitting in the top chair there. It's a safe community to live in. It's a great community to live in, and we occasionally have major crimes. Everybody does.
Sure.
Just coming from Chicago Heights, I often, 20 years ago, this is, to my opinion, the closest thing to Mayberry.
Yeah.
And it almost doesn't make sense, like Micah talked about, with the access to the town, and we're nearby a major city like Joliet. But it's a great community to live in, and it's a safe community to live in. And when we have these major incidents, we have, if I can pat myself on the back, in previous administrations, we've handled them pretty impressively, in my opinion. That murder case that you're talking about, as unfortunate and tragic as it was, I mean, we basically had a grainy black and white video to go off of, and to make an arrest on that one was that was one of those ones you start out and you keep the troops positive. We're going to get this, and sure enough, they worked nonstop. And we were able to solve that one. And like you said, just got a murder conviction. We've had a couple carjackings, that were major.
By Cook County career criminals.
Yeah. And those draw major news media.
Attention, yeah.
And so, the magnification of us is on it and during those. And, we've had arrests in those as well. And so the men and women of this department, from patrol to detectives, do an outstanding job. And I put our numbers up against anybody's, honestly. And again, I'm not just saying that because I'm the chief. We have a great department. And, going back, if I may, just to about the support, I think a lot of that support starts, when we're swearing in a new police officer, and guys show up to show support, and then the community sees, you always have a couple encouraging words, not only for the officer that's swearing in, but for the department. I think that sets the tone for us, to know that this administration has our back. And then I think it kind of bleeds down to the community as well. They see your support, because believe it or not, I know you know this, but a lot of towns don't have that support even from the village administration or the city administration for various reasons. So I'm very thankful that we have that.
Reasons.
And I think it all just kind of makes for it's a great place to work. It's a great place to be a police officer.
No, and I'm glad to hear you say that, and it really is true. And I'm going to tell you again, you both know, despite my background, I'm not up in your business telling you how to run a department. You know how to run a police department. We have conversations, but the decisions that are made at the police department are made by you. And you're the chief and the deputy chief, because myself and the board have got complete confidence in your ability to do that. And you and your staff have proven over and over again that we're right to have that confidence in you. I do see, but you're right, and it's really frustrating for me. And it's not just with law enforcement, but there are mayors and administrators that cave to the political winds, the political pressures. The job in law enforcement has changed tremendously. The scrutiny on police officers, and the criticism when something goes wrong, even though you're charged with making split-second decisions. My attitude's always been, were you malicious and intentional in what happened, or are you just doing your best and sometimes things go wrong? And if we don't get behind our police officers that are doing their best, knowing that sometimes things will not go the way we want them to, then we're already seeing who wants to be the police.
Right.
So talk a little bit about that too, because departments are having a horrible time recruiting police officers. And what are you seeing here?
Yeah, well, when you tested, what year was that?
When I was
to become a police officer.
When I tested in 1987, I got hired in '88. Yeah.
So when I started testing in the early 90s, I think when I came here to test in 2005, I was at Lincoln Way Central in the cafeteria, and there was 300 plus people.
No doubt.
Now we hold a police test every other year. Realistically, it's been like every year lately, and you're lucky to get 25 candidates, and so, but to contradict that, at the same time, we're still getting quality candidates here. We try to maintain a balance of lateral, so we're getting an experienced officer that can hit the ground running. Maybe the initial cost to us is a little bit more, but it's a little less because we don't have to send them to the academy. They don't, so. But at the same time, we're at max. You've graciously allowed us to hire a 40th police officer, so we're right where we should be, and we have a pool of candidates that we can draw from when necessary. So while the numbers are down at the testing, we're still finding good people that want to come and work here. And one of the main reasons is because they probably can go on our Facebook page and kind of get a sense of the interaction with the community and the support from the community. And then they'll see the interaction and the support from our village administration. They see the kind of state's attorney and Jim Glasgow that we work for that's prosecuting people. And this is where you want to come. If we've hired 10 laterals, say, in the last 5 or 6 years, and 9, if not all 10, are from Cook County. And it's for some of those reasons that I talked about earlier. Because, you become the police. It's cliche because you want to help people to serve and protect. But you want to catch the bad guy too, you know what I mean? And so you come here and you can still do all that. There's plenty to do. If you want to get into some crime, you can find it. There's plenty of cars coming through town, and you have plenty of opportunity to be the police still, but you can also pull up to the lemonade stand on the corner and wave to everybody that's cutting their grass. And that's that's where people want to work, and that's why we're not
important. Right. There's no doubt about it. And Micah, you're working directly with a lot of these officers that have come from other departments.
Yes. Yep.
I found in my experience, and tell me what you're finding, those tend to be the most grateful ones.
And like the chief said, him coming from another department, they have something to compare it to. So I done my whole career here, and very blessed to be able to do that. But when you talk to an officer from a Cook County location, even minus the paperwork and all that stuff, they talk about the support. They talk about the people here, how nice we have it, and they want to come to work, right? So what happens too, I think, is that those officers, that word gets out. So definitely our numbers are down. But as I talk to other departments, even Cook County or even local departments, they might be getting 10 people coming to a test. I think the last one we were back up to 50, which was for the area, not bad. So people are still looking at this. Our officers now are putting the word out there too that it's a good place to be.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. And I can tell you as the mayor, on behalf of myself, the board, our administration, and this community, because I'm out there talking to all of them, we are very grateful and appreciative of what you two are doing, what your entire staff is doing. Deputy Chief Perry does a wonderful job as well. I mean, just up and down the line, our office staff over there is very friendly with people that come in. You're doing a great job. We covered some topics. There's a lot more that clearly we can talk about.
Sure.
I know I'm going to have you guys back at another time. How about what's a message, Chief, something you want the community to hear from the police department? Anything else you want to add to them, and something you want to say? Here's your opportunity.
I don't know if there's anything I haven't already said, but first I'd just say thanks for the support. Our guys come in and, they go out and grab lunch, and whether it's somebody saying hi or trying to pay for their coffee or their lunch, it just means a lot to these guys to know that they're supported. And just that this is still a great community to live in, and that our guys are out there. We hire good people, not just good police officers, but our goal is to find good human beings that know how to treat people, even in the most pressured moment. And it's not to say that we're perfect, but you have a great police department, and one that you can feel safe when you go to bed at night. There's going to be some things that happen, but we're going to jump on it and get to the bottom of it. So that's
right. We absolutely stress being kind and compassionate to everybody, but we're also very serious about upholding law. Yeah. Well, I want to thank both of you very much for your service to this town, what you do for all of us, for your participation here in this podcast today. It really means a lot to me personally. I'm Tim Balderman, and that's it for this edition of Too Honest for Social Media. You heard what our guests have had to say. It's your turn now to listen, take a stand. If you like what you've heard, and I'm assuming here today you have, or for some reason you don't, you've got the information that you need. And you should always demand accountability from the people that are sworn to serve your interests. Remember, an informed public is accurate representation's strongest ally. Thank you.
Stealing your life away.